We're back for your ears only. I'm Eddie Robinson.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. Borked. That's the term often used to describe Senate rejection of a presidential appointment for political or ideological reasons. It stemmed from the blocking of Richard Nixon's 1987 Supreme Court nomination of Robert Bork, who died last week at age 85. Also passing last week at age 88 was the nation's longest-serving senator and model of bipartisanship, Daniel K. Inouye, a decorated hero in World War II, even as other Japanese Americans were rounded up as security risks. Now this.
Our Plan B would protect American taxpayers who make $1 million or less and have all of their current rates extended.
What I saw in the report is a department that has sclerosis, that doesn't think outside the box, that is not using the resources that it has in any kind of creative ways, is not prioritizing. I cannot imagine sending folks out to Benghazi after what we saw from the security cameras and the drones.
Gun control was far from the only issue dividing Washington last week. House Speaker John Boehner couldn't even get his Republican majority behind a Plan B to avoid the fiscal cliff of across-the-board tax increases and budget cuts that Congress itself had created in hope of making some bipartisan compromise preferable. And Republicans like Tennessee Senator Bob Corker kept up the attack over inadequate protection of the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, where the ambassador and 3 other Americans were killed, even after President Obama, as expected, nominated fellow Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts to be the new Secretary of State.
To talk about these continuing disputes and other games Washington plays, we're joined again by TV commentator Eleanor Clift, also a contributor to NewsweekDailyBeast.com. Welcome back to the program.
Glad to be with you, David.
Let's start with gun violence. What are you expecting from the president and his task force on various steps to take?
Well, I think the president's going to come out clearly in favor of a assault weapons ban, renewing the ban that expired in 2004. And I imagine there will be some provisions to enhance the treatment of, the monitoring of people with mental health problems. And I think the president, he said he's going to talk about it in his State of the Union, which is late January, early February. And I think he sees this as really a legacy-defining issue for him, and he's going to add a sense of urgency, perhaps asking for a bill to be on his desk by a certain date. So I think he's going to push as best he can, but certainly the whole decision does not lie in his hands. Congress will play a major role.
How do you see Congress responding to proposals for more controls on assault-style weapons and high-capacity ammunition holders and more spending on mental health?
I can imagine a bill getting through the Senate because you have some pro-gun Democrats in particular who have come out in favor of some changes. But the House is really difficult. A bill would have to get out of, for starters, the House Judiciary Committee, and the chairman of that committee has already said that he does not envision any gun control legislation. So it's really hard to see how a bill would move in the House unless there is significant public pressure, and I think that's what the president is going to keep emphasizing, that he can't do this alone, that the parents who are members of the NRA, the National Rifle Association, have to let their voices be heard or there will be no legislative movement.
It's ironic, but given the fiscal crisis, can conservatives who usually echo NRA positions even consider federal financing of armed guards in every school as the NRA has proposed, practical or not? Could that cost them NRA support?
Well, you don't know whether to laugh or cry that they don't want the government in any aspect of their lives except to pay for armed guards in every school. It's my understanding that a third of schools already do have an armed guard, and I think it probably should be left up to the individual communities. But I don't think that is going to be the emphasis of any federal legislation, and I think the NRA is really getting criticized for not really recognizing the role of the prevalence of guns in society and instead calling for more guns in more people's hands.
Republicans were outspoken in support of Senator Kerry for Secretary of State, especially as an alternative to UN Ambassador Susan Rice, who had followed orders to downplay the terrorist attack in Benghazi. Does he have views any different than Obama?
Not that I can tell. What John Kerry brings is that he has relationships already with most of the foreign leaders around the world, and so he brings a familiarity, plus the fact he is highly regarded within the Senate, and his confirmation, should be relatively easy.
There seems to be opposition among Republicans and Democrats alike to reports that former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel might be named the next Secretary of Defense. What are the complaints? Who else is being considered?
Senator Hagel, well, first of all, he supported Barack Obama in 2008, and so he's alienated his own party as a Republican, and that doesn't endear himself to members of the Senate. But he has in the past been critical of Israel's expansion of settlements. I think he has referred to the Israeli lobby, and at one point said, I'm not a senator. I'm a U.S. senator. I'm not an Israeli senator, sort of resisting, some of the things that they have wanted. And so that his language and some of his positions have alienated some members of the Jewish community. But some Jewish organizations have come out, in favor of him. So it's not unilateral that he is seen as a critic of Israel. And in fact, some people in Washington are really disturbed at the pattern that's being set here, that high-level possible appointments before they've even been appointed go through this hazing, which seems almost like a smear campaign, and I think that's what we're watching with Senator Hagel. There is a woman whose name has been suggested as a possible alternative, Michelle Flournoy, highly regarded. She held the third top civilian position in the Pentagon. She's worked under Bob Gates and Leon Panetta, the two defense secretaries, and she's a possible replacement. But I think the president has to be careful. He doesn't want to be seen as walking away from yet another fight.
What do you hear about how the Democrats may try to hold Kerry's seat against another run by just defeated Senator Scott Brown in Massachusetts? He's come out for a federal assault weapons ban that should be popular in the state.
Yeah, Scott Brown is popular, and he's taken all the right positions to sort of place himself in the center of the political spectrum. And a special election doesn't bring all the enthusiasm that a presidential election brings, so he won't be facing somebody who will be riding on the president's coattails. I think the White House probably would have loved to bring Deval Patrick, the current governor of Massachusetts, into the race, but he's been saying he doesn't want to do it. Ed Markey, a very highly regarded member of the House who's got a lot of seniority and has been very aggressive on climate change and energy issues, he's indicated an interest in running. There's also some talk that Ted Kennedy Jr. might want to actually move back to Massachusetts and try to reclaim the seat his father once held, or a seat that his father once held in the state. I think this isn't the particular Kennedy seat, but everything in Massachusetts is regarded as part Kennedy. So there are a lot of discussions, and Vicki Kennedy, the senator's widow, may be the placeholder until a special election is held.
TV commentator Eleanor Clift is also a contributor to NewsweekDailyBeast.com.
Quote from the news, "This is very bad and it poisons our relations." That was Russian President Vladimir Putin on the Magnitsky Act, passed by the Congress to penalize Russian officials for human rights violations. But Putin did not immediately reveal if he would sign retaliatory legislation from the Russian parliament to block American adoptions of over 900 Russian orphans each year.
Next, Inside Africa, for your ears only.